Such a shame you chose peonies for the centerpieces, Barbara said, running her finger along the petal of a pale pink bloom. They'll be wilted by dinner. I told Jason you should have gone with orchids. I gripped the clipboard tighter, forcing a smile. Peonies are my favorite, and they're in season, so they're perfectly fresh. Well, it's your party, Barbara's lips pursed. Though I still think my suggestion for the country club would have been more appropriate than your backyard. We wanted something intimate, I replied. Something that felt like us. Barbara's eyes narrowed slightly. Yes, well, you've always had unique tastes. My name is Aubrey Collins, 29 years old, and today marks my 3rd wedding anniversary with Jason. For 6 months, I've been planning this garden party at our home in Lexington, Kentucky, arranging catering, decorations, and entertainment for 30 of our closest friends and family. I wanted tonight to be perfect, a celebration of our love and the life we've built together. There was just one persistent cloud over my preparations. Barbara Collins, my mother-in-law, who had insisted on arriving hours early to help. Her version of helping consisted mainly of criticizing my choices and reminiscing about how she would have done things differently. I just think it's odd you didn't consult me on the menu, she continued, flipping through my carefully curated selection. Jason's always loved my beef Wellington. He practically begged for it at every birthday. The caterer specializes in local cuisine, I explained for the 3rd time, and Jason approved everything. Barbara waved dismissively. He's always been too agreeable. Hates confrontation. It's why he lets you make all these decisions. I checked my watch, grateful that guests would arrive in just over 2 hours. I need to finish setting up the bar and take my medication before getting dressed. Oh, yes, your condition. Barbara's voice dripped with skepticism. Such a burden for Jason. I headed inside without responding, my patience wearing dangerously thin. In the kitchen, I took a calming breath before reaching for my prescription bottle on the counter where I'd left it that morning. My medication for severe autoimmune symptoms wasn't something I could skip, especially on such a stressful day. I shook the bottle and paused. It sounded different, fuller somehow, with a lighter rattle. Opening it, I found unfamiliar round white pills instead of my usual oval ones. Confused, I examined one closer, then poured them onto a napkin to inspect. My stomach dropped as I realized what I was looking at. These weren't my prescription tablets. They were sugar pills. Someone had deliberately replaced my vital medication. And there was only one person who had been in my house all day, one person who had always seen my health issues as an inconvenience, a flaw that made me unworthy of her son. Barbara. Jason and I met at a fundraising event 4 years ago, where I was coordinating logistics and he was representing his architectural firm. We connected over a shared love of historic preservation and Kentucky bourbon. 3 months later, we were inseparable. A year after that, married in a small ceremony at a local vineyard. Barbara's disapproval was evident from our first meeting. She'd had another woman in mind for Jason, the daughter of her bridge partner, a pediatric surgeon from a prominent local family. Next to Dr. Heather Whitfield's impressive credentials, my career as an event coordinator seemed trivial to Barbara, despite my success running my own business. It's just glorified party planning, she once remarked within my earshot. Hardly a career. When Jason proposed, Barbara's campaign against me intensified. She questioned my health issues, the autoimmune condition I'd managed since college, suggesting I might be exaggerating for attention. She accidentally included shellfish, which I'm severely allergic to, in dishes she prepared for family dinners. She reminisced constantly about Jason's ex-girlfriends and their accomplishments. Despite her efforts, Jason and I built a happy life together. He supported my business as it grew, and I cheered him on when he made partner at his firm. We renovated a historic home in Lexington's Chevy Chase neighborhood, creating a space that reflected both our styles. Barbara found fault with every decision, from the paint colors to the furniture arrangement. It's too modern, she complained. The Collins family has always appreciated tradition. Jason usually deflected his mother's criticisms with good humor, attributing them to old-fashioned ideas and difficulty adjusting to change. He saw her actions as misguided attempts to protect him rather than deliberate attacks on me. "She'll come around," he often assured me. "She just needs time." 3 years later, I was still waiting for that miraculous transformation. If anything, Barbara had become more calculating, timing her barbs for moments when Jason wasn't present to witness them. For our anniversary party, I had attempted a peace offering, incorporating several elements Barbara might appreciate: her favorite flowers in the guest bathroom, the bourbon brand she preferred at the bar, a special table near the garden's best views. I even invited her early, hoping to make her feel included. Now, staring at the sugar pills that had replaced my medication, I realized how naive I'd been. Barbara hadn't come early to help. She had come to sabotage. I searched through my purse for my backup medication, which I always carried for emergencies. Finding the small pill case, I quickly took my proper dose. As I swallowed, I considered my options. Should I confront Barbara immediately? Tell Jason? Cancel the party altogether? The thought of Barbara's satisfaction if I ruined my own anniversary celebration made the decision for me. The party would go on, but I would be watching my mother-in-law very carefully. I finished my makeup and secured the last pin in my upswept hair, examining my reflection. The emerald green dress complemented my auburn hair, and if my smile seemed slightly forced, only I would notice. Taking a deep breath, I headed downstairs to check on the final preparations. The caterers were arranging appetizer trays in the kitchen. The bartender was setting up on the patio, and fairy lights twinkled throughout the garden. Everything was perfect, or would have been, if not for the lingering unease about Barbara's actions. I found her in the dining area, adjusting my carefully arranged place cards. "I've moved the Hendersons closer to us," she explained without looking up. "They're practically family, unlike some of those work friends you insisted on inviting." "The seating was intentional," I said, keeping my voice level. "Jason and I arranged it together." Barbara glanced up, a calculated innocence on her face. "Oh? Well, he won't mind. He always preferred Catherine Henderson's company. They dated in high school, you know." I did know. Barbara mentioned it at least once a month. "I found something interesting earlier," I said, watching her carefully. "Someone replaced my medication with sugar pills." Barbara's expression didn't waver, but a slight flush appeared on her neck, her tell, as Jason had once pointed out. "How careless of you to mix them up," she replied smoothly. "I didn't mix anything up. My pills were deliberately switched." She straightened, meeting my eyes with a cold smile. "That's a serious accusation, Aubrey. Perhaps your condition is affecting your judgment. These autoimmune issues can sometimes impact cognitive function, can't they?" The calculated cruelty stole my breath momentarily. This wasn't just passive-aggressive sniping. This was dangerous. She had deliberately tampered with medication I needed. "Why do you hate me so much?" I asked, the question escaping before I could stop it. Barbara's smile tightened. "Hate is such a strong word. I simply recognize that you're not right for my son. Eventually he'll see it too. We've been happily married for 3 years. 3 years is nothing," she dismissed. "A fleeting moment. Jason needs someone who will enhance his life, not complicate it with health problems and frivolous career choices." As she turned back to the place cards, rearranging them to her preference once more, a terrible clarity came over me. Barbara wasn't simply difficult or overprotective. She was actively working to undermine my marriage, my health, my confidence. And she wouldn't stop. "Maybe you'll finally leave my son," she added softly, almost to herself. I stood frozen, the full implication of her words sinking in. She hadn't just wanted to make me ill for the party. She had hoped a medical episode might strain our marriage beyond repair. This was sabotage on a level I hadn't imagined possible. Jason's voice broke the moment as he came through the front door. "Hello? The florist just delivered more greenery. Where should I put it?" Barbara's demeanor shifted instantly, her voice warming. "In the kitchen, darling. Everything looks wonderful." As she brushed past me to greet her son, her eyes flashed a clear message. This is far from over. And in that moment, I realized she was right. This wasn't over, but it wouldn't end the way Barbara expected. When Jason entered the dining area, I forced a smile, unwilling to cast a shadow over our celebration by revealing his mother's actions. Not yet, anyway. I needed proof, something more concrete than switched pills that Barbara could easily deny or attribute to my confusion. You look stunning, Jason said, kissing my cheek. Everything okay? You seem tense. Just pre-party nerves, I assured him. Would you mind checking that the bartender has enough ice? I need to review a few things with the caterer. Once Jason headed to the backyard, I slipped into the guest bathroom where Barbara had left her oversized purse. I hesitated only briefly before searching it, finding my original pills tucked into an inner pocket. I took a photo with my phone, then returned everything exactly as I'd found it. Evidence secured, I rejoined the preparations, keeping a careful distance from Barbara while observing her every move. She hovered around the bar for several minutes, pointing out specific bottles to the bartender with unusual interest. When she stepped away, I approached him. My mother-in-law can be particular, I said conversationally. What was she asking about? The champagne, he replied. She wanted to make sure we're serving the French brand she requested for the toast, not the domestic one on the general bar menu. Said she has the refined palate in the family. He rolled his eyes slightly. I nodded, remembering Barbara's insistence on providing her own champagne. Dom Pérignon, a specific vintage she claimed was the only acceptable choice for proper celebrations. It was the one contribution she'd made that I'd accepted without argument, if only to give her something to feel important about. Where did she have you put it? I asked. In the wine cooler, left side, said it's only for her and a few select guests. My suspicion grew. I checked the wine cooler when the bartender was distracted, finding the distinctive bottle with a small piece of blue tape on the bottom, Barbara's way of marking it presumably. I didn't dare open it, but made a mental note to watch closely when it was served. The first guests arrived at 7, and soon our backyard was filled with conversation and laughter. I moved through the crowd, playing hostess while keeping Barbara in my peripheral vision. She held court near the koi pond, regaling Jason's colleagues with stories of his childhood achievements, carefully edited to minimize my presence in his current success. At one point, I overheard her speaking to Jason's boss. Of course, the Hendersons' daughter would have been the more conventional choice. She's just made head of neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins. But Jason always had a soft spot for creative types. I bit my tongue and moved on, reminding myself that engaging would only give her the reaction she wanted. As dinner approached, Barbara cornered me in the kitchen under the guise of helping with the final touches. I noticed you took your medication after all, she said quietly. How fortunate you had extras. I always carry backups, I replied evenly. Given my serious medical condition. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Yes, your condition. How convenient it never seems to hinder you when there's a party to plan or attention to be gained. Before I could respond, she added, I understand if this is all too much for you. No one would blame you if you needed to lie down while I handle the hosting duties. The offer might have seemed thoughtful to an outsider, but we both knew what it was, another attempt to sideline me at my own anniversary celebration. I feel perfectly fine, I assured her with a tight smile, but thank you for your concern. Barbara's expression hardened momentarily, before smoothing into practiced pleasantness as Jason entered the kitchen. There you are. I was just telling Aubrey how lovely everything looks, she said. Though I've offered to take over if she's feeling overwhelmed. Aubrey never gets overwhelmed, Jason said proudly, wrapping an arm around my waist. That's why she's the best event planner in Lexington. Barbara's smile didn't reach her eyes. Yes, well, it's almost time for dinner. Shall we direct the guests to their seats? As she walked ahead, Jason whispered, Everything okay between you two? I hesitated, then nodded. Just the usual. Nothing I can't handle. But as we followed Barbara toward the dining area, I couldn't shake the feeling that something worse was coming. Dinner proceeded smoothly, the food receiving enthusiastic compliments from our guests. I'd begun to think my concerns about Barbara might be overblown. Perhaps the pill incident was her only planned sabotage, when I noticed her speaking intently to the bartender again. He nodded, looking confused before retrieving her special champagne from the wine cooler. I excused myself and approached the bar, arriving just as he began to open the bottle. "Is there a problem?" I asked casually. "No, ma'am," he replied. "Mrs. Collins requested her champagne be opened now so it can breathe before the toasts." "I'll take care of that," I offered, extending my hand. "We're still about 20 minutes from toasts, and I need to speak with you about the dessert wine pairings anyway." Once the bartender moved toward the kitchen, I examined the bottle more closely. The blue tape marker confirmed it was Barbara's special selection, but something felt off. I discreetly smelled the opened bottle but detected nothing unusual. Still, my instincts were screaming that something wasn't right. I made a split-second decision, swapping Barbara's marked bottle with an identical one from our own collection. If my suspicions were unfounded, no harm done. She'd never know the difference. If I was right, I replaced both bottles, Barbara's now safely set aside, and rejoined the table just as the main course was being cleared. Across the garden, I saw Barbara watching me with that calculating look I'd come to recognize. She raised her water glass slightly in my direction, almost a toast, before turning her attention back to her dinner companions. As dessert was served, Jason stood to begin the anniversary toasts. The bartender circulated, pouring champagne, including the bottle I'd swapped out for Barbara's. When he reached Barbara, she pointedly checked the bottom for her blue tape marker before allowing him to pour, then smiled in satisfaction when she spotted it. Jason raised his glass. "To my incredible wife, who makes every day an adventure. 3 years of marriage feels like just the beginning of our journey." Guests murmured in appreciation, sipping their champagne. Barbara took a deliberate drink from her glass, her eyes never leaving mine. I was about to dismiss my suspicions when Jason's college roommate, Ben, suddenly stood up, clutching his stomach. "I'm so sorry," he gasped. "I think I need to—" He didn't finish the sentence before rushing toward the house. Within moments, 2 other guests at Barbara's end of the table showed similar distress, excusing themselves hurriedly. All had drunk from the regular champagne, not Barbara's special bottle, which I'd kept separate. Barbara's expression shifted from satisfaction to confusion as she took another sip, clearly expecting something to happen. When nothing did, her brow furrowed slightly. "Is everything all right?" I asked her innocently. "Perfectly fine," she replied, though her tight grip on her glass suggested otherwise. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Barbara hadn't tampered with her own champagne. She'd tampered with the regular champagne meant for everyone else. By some terrible coincidence, it had been served at her end of the table first, affecting her preferred guests rather than me. She'd planned to claim food poisoning or an allergic reaction, while I dealt with the chaos of multiple sick guests. I felt a cold wave of realization. This went beyond petty sabotage. She'd been willing to ruin not just my evening, but everyone's experience, potentially causing actual harm to innocent people, all to undermine me. I glanced at the bottle of her special champagne that I'd set aside, wondering now what might actually be in it. Had she prepared a backup plan? Was there something in that bottle intended specifically for me? Looking up, I caught Barbara's eyes again. The mask had slipped entirely now, revealing a hatred so pure it took my breath away. This woman, my husband's mother, wasn't just trying to drive me away. She wanted to destroy me. And in that moment, I knew I had to do something definitive to end this war she'd been waging. Not just for tonight, but for all our future celebrations and ordinary days between. As the affected guests returned one by one, looking pale but recovering, I quietly circulated, ensuring everyone had water and offering my apologies for what I characterized as possible food sensitivity in one of the appetizers. Barbara watched from her seat, visibly frustrated that her plan had gone awry. Jason was busy speaking with his boss, giving me a moment to approach the bartender again. The champagne we set aside earlier, could you pour a glass just for Mrs. Collins? I asked quietly. She's mentioned the other bottle doesn't taste right to her. Of course, he nodded, retrieving Barbara's original bottle, the one I suspected might contain something unpleasant meant for the general guests. I carried the fresh glass to Barbara myself. I noticed you weren't enjoying the champagne, I said pleasantly. This is from your special bottle, the one with your marker on it. Her eyes lit with recognition, and she took the glass with a satisfied smile. How thoughtful. This vintage is exceptional. Wasted on most palates, but perfect for a true connoisseur. A toast, then, I suggested, raising my own glass of the regular champagne. To family. Barbara clinked her glass against mine and took a deep sip, clearly savoring what she believed was her untampered selection. I watched her closely, wondering what exactly she had added to the champagne and how quickly it might take effect. I didn't have to wait long. Within minutes, Barbara shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her hand moving to her stomach. A flash of panic crossed her face as she realized what was happening. "Excuse me," she muttered, standing abruptly. "I need to—" She didn't finish the sentence before hurrying toward the house. Jason looked up in concern. "Is Mom okay?" "Probably just needed the restroom," I replied calmly. The toast is about to continue. As planned, our closest friend David rose to deliver the next speech. By the time he finished his heartfelt tribute to our marriage, Barbara had not returned. 10 minutes later, there was still no sign of her. "Maybe I should check on Mom," Jason suggested, looking worried. "I'll go," I offered. "You should stay with our guests." I found Barbara in the upstairs bathroom, the door locked. "Barbara? Are you all right?" I called, knowing perfectly well she wasn't. "Go away," came her strained voice. "Should I call a doctor? Was it something you ate or drank?" There was a pause before the door opened just enough to reveal Barbara's ashen face. "You knew," she hissed. "You switched the bottles." I maintained a neutral expression. "I'm not sure what you mean. Are you suggesting someone tampered with the champagne? That would be not only cruel but potentially dangerous, wouldn't it?" The implication hung between us. We both knew what she had done. "This isn't over," Barbara warned, her voice weak but venomous. "Actually, it is," I replied quietly. "I found my medication in your purse. I have photos. I also saved a sample of both champagne bottles. If anything like this ever happens again, if you ever try to sabotage my health, my marriage, or even just a dinner party, I'll go to Jason with everything. Do you understand?" Barbara's face contorted with fury, but another wave of intestinal distress cut off whatever she had planned to say. The bathroom door slammed shut. "I'll let Jason know you're not feeling well," I called through the door. "Such a shame you'll miss the rest of the celebration." As I walked away, I heard what might have been a sob of frustration. For the first time since meeting Barbara, I felt something close to pity for her. How empty her life must be, to focus so much energy on destroying someone else's happiness. Rejoining the party, I found Jason in the garden, concern etched on his face. "Mom's sick?" "Food sensitivity, I think," I replied smoothly. "She said not to worry, she just needs some time alone." As the evening continued without Barbara, a weight lifted from my shoulders. The party was everything I'd hoped it would be. Joyful, intimate, a true celebration of our love and life together. And for once, no one was trying to sabotage it. Barbara remained sequestered in the upstairs bathroom throughout the toasts, the cake cutting, and the first dance. By the time our closest friends were preparing to leave, she had been absent for nearly 2 hours. I directed the caterers to box up a slice of anniversary cake for her, making sure everyone heard my thoughtful gesture for my poor, ill mother-in-law. Jason went to check on her just as the quartet began playing our final requested song. He returned looking troubled. "She's finally coming down," he whispered. "But she's insisting someone tampered with her drink." On cue, Barbara appeared at the edge of the garden, her carefully styled hair now limp, her makeup smudged despite obvious attempts to fix it. Her eyes locked onto mine with undisguised hatred. I squeezed Jason's hand. I think the heat and excitement might have been too much for her. As Barbara approached us, I stepped forward with concern. Feeling better? We saved cake for you. You did this, she hissed under her breath. You switched the champagne. You knew. Knew what, Barbara? I asked innocently, aware that several guests were within earshot. That you marked your special bottle? Or that you put something in the regular champagne? The one that made Ben and the Johnsons sick? Her face paled further as she realized the implications. If she accused me directly, she would have to explain her own actions. Mom, what's going on? Jason asked, his brow furrowed with confusion. Barbara struggled visibly, caught between her desire for revenge and self-preservation. Nothing, she finally said. I'm just not feeling well. Such a shame you missed most of the party, I said, handing her the cake box, especially after you arrived so early to help. The emphasis on help wasn't lost on Barbara. Her hands shook slightly as she took the box. Perhaps next time you'll be able to enjoy the whole celebration, I added, without any unexpected interruptions. Barbara's eyes narrowed at the implied threat, but with Jason and the remaining guests watching, she could only manage a tight smile. Yes, next time. But we both knew there wouldn't be a next time, at least not one where she had any control. I had won. As the last guest departed and the catering staff began cleanup, Barbara announced she would be leaving despite our offer for her to stay overnight as planned. I think it's best if I go home, she said stiffly. I'm clearly not well. Jason, still oblivious to the true nature of the evening's power struggle, insisted on driving her. I'll handle things here, I assured him, kissing his cheek. Take care of your mom. While they were gone, I methodically gathered my evidence, the sealed sample of Barbara's tampered champagne, the photos of my medication in her purse, and a new addition. Security camera footage from our garden showing Barbara at the bar, handling the champagne bottles when she thought no one was watching. I stored everything in a secure folder on my cloud drive, then sent myself an email with the subject line, Insurance against Barbara Collins, Anniversary Party Incident. She didn't need to know exactly what evidence I had, just that it existed and could be used if necessary. When Jason returned, I was curled up on our porch swing, watching the cleanup crew dismantle the last of our perfect evening. Mom says she's never coming to another event you organize, he sighed, sitting beside me. What really happened tonight? I rested my head on his shoulder. Let's just say your mother and I reached an understanding. That sounds ominous, he said, but his tone was lighter than I expected. It's actually liberating, I replied. I think we'll have a much more peaceful relationship going forward. 2 days later, a stiff note arrived from Barbara, declining our Thanksgiving invitation with a vague reference to prior commitments. The following week, she announced plans to vacation in Europe for Christmas, her first holiday away from Jason in his entire life. As I pinned her note to our kitchen bulletin board, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about winning the battle, it's about changing the entire war. And our future celebrations would be perfectly peaceful without Barbara's presence, just as I had planned all along.